Do you think the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson addition does enough to put the Eagles as the clear-cut front runners in this division?
I don't know about clear cut, but I definitely think it helps them a lot. I mean, secondary has been one of the places where the Eagles have struggled for years at this point, and to bring in that addition, I think it's going to be absolutely huge, especially when you're talking about two divisional games against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I still think it's very neck and neck. I think you're going to have to wait until the season starts a little bit to see how Jalen Hurts can kind of utilize that receiver core.
And those of you who have followed along for the past, 2 decades or so will be no stranger to our next guest who filled in quite a bit for my show, The State of Football, also the host of our NFL draft coverage, now a play-by-play and anchor for Delmarva Sports down there in Maryland. Kayla Santiago making her Football Playbook debut. Good morning, Kayla. Great to see you again.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk football.
I know. I know you love to chop it up and break it down, Eagles edition, because by the way, if you're not following Kayla Santiago on Twitter, she's a must follow for any Eagles fans on Sundays, because you're as passionate as it comes when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know our chat room is going to appreciate all your love and support of the Birds. But for those of you, you're making your Football Playbook debut. We've got a lot of different viewers and audience. It's not our traditional NFL Draft Bible audience. So introduce yourself to the folks at home. Tell them a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and where you're at today.
Yeah, so I'm originally from South Jersey, right outside of Philly. So I grew up watching all Philly sports and love them dearly. But right now I'm in Salisbury, Maryland. A play-by-play broadcaster, anchor, and reporter for Delmarva Sports, where we cover all the high school, colleges, and minor league teams around the Delmarva region. So that's Southern Maryland and Southern Delaware. And I actually am now sports director for Delmarva Sports. So that was just
Oh,
brought upon
congrats. Nice.
over the weekend. So yeah, it's been about a year here. It's been really awesome to kind of grow my horizon, but I always love to, come on different social media platforms and different platforms just as this as well and talk football, talk everything sports. And it's just been a really awesome opportunity for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great. Great news to see you continue to flourish and do big things, something that I kind of knew that you were destined for. So, all right, let's talk some Eagles football. The big trade, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming to town yesterday. I haven't checked the Ocean Casino Sportsbook odds at the gallery yet, but my feeling is the odds for the Eagles to win this NFC East might have improved just a little bit. Have they overtaken the Dallas Cowboys as the Vegas favorite? I don't know on paper, but it seems to be a two-horse race in this NFC East. Do you think the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson addition does enough to put the Eagles as the clear-cut front runners in this division?
I don't know about clear cut, but I definitely think it helps them a lot. I mean, secondary has been one of the places where the Eagles have struggled for years at this point, and to bring in that addition, I think it's going to be absolutely huge, especially when you're talking about two divisional games against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I still think it's very neck and neck. I think you're going to have to wait until the season starts a little bit to see how Jalen Hurts can kind of utilize that receiver core, but I'm excited. I mean, I think the Eagles have a really good chance of winning this division, and not just winning it because it's the NFC least, but winning it because they're actually a good team and can try to make a playoff push this year.
Yeah, I think safety was the one position by far, especially on defense, that Howie was going to kind of look to upgrade. I know they were talking to Cincinnati at one point about Jesse Bates, and the
Right.
compensation was like a first-round pick. They get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for a bag of chips. Unbelievable, the wheeling and dealing Howie's pulled off here in the offseason. But the trickle or ripple effect was the release of Anthony Harris. I saw a question come in the chat room. Would Anthony Harris be a candidate to return to Philadelphia, possibly on the practice squad? They've expanded it to 16 spots. I think six practice squad spots can be allocated to NFL veterans. Do you think Harris has a chance of coming back to Philadelphia, or did that ship sail?
I think there's a slight chance. I think that it will be a little bit tough because I think right now the Eagles are really secure in what they have and what they have on that practice squad. But hey, you never know what can happen. You never know if they can call him in later as well. There's injuries always happen, things go on last minute. And I honestly think I know a lot of people are not fans of Howie Roseman, but what he's been able to do the last 6 months, I think have really helped out Philadelphia. So I think there's a chance, but I think right now that's not the direction that they're looking in.
I tend to agree because, Harris kind of on the back nine. You got all these young, talented players. Reed Blankenship, an undrafted free agent who played really well. Andre Chicheri played above
Mhm.
his head. And they still have Kevon Wallace, who they like. They seem to like. I don't know if he earned that roster spot or it's just because he was a draft pick or not. I mean, I'm a big Reed Blankenship guy, but no, I tend to agree. I don't think Anthony Harris will be back unless there's absolutely zero interest on the market, which I don't know. I tend to think that somebody's going to probably scoop him up. We shall see. They try to catch lightning in a bottle with Jaquiski Tart. That didn't pan out. So the new starting safety duo looks phenomenal. That Eagles defense is looking star-studded. Where are you with the Jonathan Gannon game plan? A lot of folks think he's not aggressive enough. Are you gonna wait and see what he does here, or what are your thoughts with this defensive scheme?
Yeah, I think it's a big wait and see. And I think I've been saying that for the whole entire Eagles team as a whole, right? You're talking about another year, second year head coach, basically second year full time starting quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And I think it's a wait and see. I think you're going to have to see how this chemistry and this defense kind of works out. But on paper, honestly, I think this is the best defense the Eagles have had in a really long time. We've seen the receivers, we've seen the QB discussion back then with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, the running backs that they've had that were supposed to be very, very good. And now it's exciting to have another good secondary. And I think it makes it a little bit easier to bring out a defensive scheme because you have so much talent now back there in the secondary. So it's going to take a few games. I think you look into week 4 and you say, now I can really judge. But I think right now it's just a little bit too hard to look at and say exactly what he's going to do.
All right, fair enough. Let's switch over to the other side of the ball then, and I'll put you on the spot with this Nick Sirianni offense here. That if there's a criticism of it, it's not creative enough, is what you hear, or they don't use motion enough. Um, Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want to see more trick plays? Do you want to see more men in motion? Do you want to see them employ more four wide receiver sets? What are you looking for from this Eagles offense, and how do you think it'll eventually play out?
I would like to see more trick plays, but I think for the first few weeks, just keeping it simple. I think you're really going to have to figure out how Jalen Hurts can have enough time there in the pocket to really air it out. I mean, that Devontae Smith connection we saw a little bit towards the end of the year. And I think now that Smith is just going to have so many more openings because of A.J. Brown. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what he draws up. I think a little bit, if you're going to have to really focus on that protection with the offensive line right there. But I think it's just keeping it simple. It's giving Jalen Hurts a little bit more opportunity to launch the ball out there. We'll really see how good his arm is this year. But Hurts can really run, tuck, and go, and he can also throw a little bit. I just think it's about how are you working those slants in? How are you working those deep balls in? And how are you really utilizing that duo in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown? I think that's the biggest thing for Nick Sirianni this year because if they're not able to have a good offense, there's really, really no excuse considering you have two really good wide receivers and an up-and-coming quarterback.
Yeah, and that dual threat capability. I mean, when Jalen plants his foot and goes, he's like a running
Mm-hmm.
back there. I mean, you gotta be held accountable for that on the defensive side of the ball. So where are you kind of in the Jalen Hurts development phase here? Because last preseason we didn't see him at all. This preseason they trotted him out there for the first game. I think he goes 6 for 6, leads the team down the chart. Other than that, though, he's kind of been kept under wraps unless you were one of these beat reporters there at the practice.
Right.
We just know what we've heard. I mean, are you kind of satisfied with the Jalen Hurts development? Are you kind of taking a wait and see approach there? Do you think he makes a significant jump, a slight jump? And are we looking at a big money contract during the offseason?
Oh, I think he takes a slight jump, and I think people really have to think about this is truly his second full year as being a starter. You know, he came in at the tail end of Carson Wentz a few seasons ago, but he wasn't fully in there. And last year was his first year with Nick Sirianni. So you're talking about year two, these guys together. I still see him in my eyes as a young quarterback that has to develop. Now, I think a lot more people are going to be a lot harder on him this year just because the talent that he has around him. So if he doesn't do well, I mean, you're going to hear the flack from every single person in Philadelphia, sports talk, radio, fans, journalists, everything like that, just because he has so much talent. But a year ago, I personally didn't even think the Eagles were going to make the playoffs. And somehow Jalen Hurts was able to put this team on his back and push that route. So I think he just has to go up from here. And I think if he can really have a good season, if he can get the Eagles past the second round of playoffs, there is a possibility about some money coming in for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. Kayla Santiago here on the Football Playbook, along with Ric Serritella, talking some Eagles. And, I mentioned with my first guest today, Glenn Irby from the Eagles Newswire at USA Today, I said Jalen Hurts is probably on this 53-man roster the biggest player under the microscope, and he will continue to be that week in and week out. After Jalen Hurts, though, it's probably Jalen Reagor, right? Because, I mean, this guy is getting shredded, it seems like, by the fan base, by the media. Howie Roseman and company, Sirianni, they come out at the press conference and defend him, say he made a bunch of plays in camp. Oh, by the way, he was one of the only players who participated in every single practice. I mean, excuse after excuse after excuse for keeping him on the roster. Will Jalen Reagor make an impact this season, and will he finish the year on the Eagles roster, do you think?
I don't think he finishes the year on the Eagles roster. I think it's just one too many tries that he's been able to have and so many chances that the Eagles have given him. And especially when you're talking about a guys like Jalen Hurts, who is still developing that deep ball, if it's constant that Reagor is not able to catch those, it's going to be an issue. Now, I think there's not as much pressure on his back, and everybody might think I'm crazy for saying that because everybody's going at him. But he's looked at as the third or fourth receiver, if you're counting tight ends as well, in this group this year. When he first came in and when he was drafted, a lot of people were like, well, he has to be wide receiver number one or wide receiver number two. He doesn't have to be that anymore. So maybe that takes the pressure off of him. And maybe he has a pretty good year. But I think just one too many drops, and he has not set up the way that he's needed to. Unless he has a phenomenal first half of the year, I think the Eagles are going to go another way.
Yeah, he's shaping up for a endorsement from Parquet. I can't believe it's not butter. Jalen
Right.
Reagor. We got Kayla Santiago, Ric Serritella chopping it up, breaking it down. Okay, 53-man cuts were yesterday. Couple players here who could be coming back. Speaking of wide receivers, I thought Deon Cain outplayed Reagor. Britton Covey gave him a run for the money on the return game capabilities. And Devin Allen, to me, really flashed. I mean, I liked what I saw on special teams, especially from Devin Allen. Of course, that 55-yard pass wasn't too shabby either. If you had to choose one of the three, who are you bringing back here?
I really like Devin Allen as well, and I think it's just the special teams aspect. And I think that's an area where a lot of people and a lot of teams looked over, but that can really, really make a difference when you go late into those tight games, especially these divisional matchups. When you talk about the Eagles and Cowboys being the two top dogs right now, at least on paper in this division, and it could come down to that game and a simple play like that. I think you need Allen on special teams, and I would give him a shot. I think that he can make a really good impact, and I think he can help them out.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to give you a second to think about it. But I need a Kayla Santiago Super Bowl prediction on record here, and I'll give you a second to think about it. While you do, I just want to remind all the listening audience that the Football Playbook is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts in Atlantic City. Make sure you check out the gallery. We'll be down there frequently and often. You're home for the Eagles postgame. Maybe we'll be able to get Kayla down to one of the Eagles postgame shows. But I'm queuing it up. I gave you time to deliberate there in your head there, Kayla. Give us the official Super Bowl prediction. Who do you got for us?
I've been saying this for a while, and I'm going to stick to my word. I think it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. I think that the Bills kind of went into last year and they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're bringing a lot of talent back. Now, I know a lot of people might not agree with Tampa Bay, but listen, Tom Brady is coming back for the pure reason that he wants to go out winning a Super Bowl, in my personal opinion. Never talked to the guy a day in my life. Don't really know Tampa Bay beat reporters, but he came back for a reason, and I think that he's going to be able to push it all the way. Now, do I think the Buccaneers are going to win? No, but they're definitely my favorite coming out of the conference.
Okay, so no concerns about the 10-day sabbatical in the middle of training camp for Mr. Brady. You're on record now. It's not going to look good if the Eagles bring it home.
I mean, hey, if the Eagles bring it home, I will be as happy as can be. You'll see me all over Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything, screaming my head off like a crazy person. But right now, I just think they're a little bit too young to make it that far. I think they can make a good postseason push, but football is super competitive, and we've seen that experience has really pushed these players a lot. So maybe in a few years if they stick to their core group, but I don't know about this season.
All right, we'll see. The Buccaneers were obviously the roadblock for the Eagles a year ago in that wild card matchup. We'll see how it all pans out, and hopefully we have you back on the show frequently before the Super Bowl. But give the listening audience at home what you have on top there at Delmarva Sports. Make sure you follow them at Delmarva Sports. Make sure you follow at Kayla Santiago _1, I think it is. And now the new sports programming director. Is that the correct title?
Yeah, sports director. So we'll have a lot of stuff coming up at Delmarva Sports. You know, we're covering high school sports is huge down here in the Maryland area, especially Southern Maryland. It kind of gives that Texas football high school feel. So we'll be doing live games every single day. If you're not in the area of Delmarva, you can download our app, actually. It's the Delmarva Sports Network app in the Android and Apple App Store, where you can see all of our live games. So we're super excited about that. We've got MMA fights coming down. We have a pro MMA fight in October where a lot of those guys are contending for the UFC as well. So that's pretty dope. And, you know, just joining things like this. So I love to as well. Love talking Eagles football. As we mentioned before, you'll see on my Twitter all season long, everything football, everything fall sports, things like that. I go a little crazy on that app and I love it. So it's like a big family out there on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Everything Philly, really. You're all over the 76ers beat as well. I see you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I know it's football talk right now, but out of every Philly team, I think they're the best to win a championship sooner than later. But who knows? The Eagles might surprise us.
Hey, anytime I have an excuse to party down Broadway in the middle of Philadelphia, sign me up. So exactly. I hope somebody brings home the chip. But hey, we appreciate the time, Kayla. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. And you and I will talk off the air and hopefully pop you back here on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me on. I always love talking birds.
Of course, part of the familia. Kayla Santiago here on the Football Playbook, making her Football Playbook debut. Hey,